What's going on, guys? Austin here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the extra points post week 4 NFL power rankings. I don't normally start paying attention to specifics and things like that until week 4 gets around, so that's why we're starting things up now. So starting off with the bottom of the NFL hierarchy, these are the bottom feeders. I think the worst team in the NFL right now is the Jaguars. There's a whole mess of things going on right now with the coaching situation, not to mention the fact that their defense is horrible. Their offense is inconsistent. Trevor Lawrence is nowhere near as good as anyone thought he was supposed to be first year. That one's pretty self-explanatory. The Lions, I think the only reason that they're better is that they have elite position groups. I think they have a worse defense, but I mean, they've got elite offensive line play. They have an elite tight end and a very good running back who have managed to help them stay close in some games. There's the Jets, who overall have a pretty decent pass defense. But again, you're looking at a group where, C plus wide receivers, D running backs, C offensive line, C quarterback. It's all the way around. It's not a good situation. Texans, I've got at 29, just because they have a lot of talent, between Brandon Cooks and Phillip Lindsay, Mark Ingram, David Johnson, a lot of, random skill position players around like that. But, in the absence of Tyrod Taylor, they're not really doing well with the young quarterback, Davis Mills. Giants, same thing for them. They've got talent, a little bit more than the rest of them, just not producing. I mean, like, you'd think that Daniel Jones would want to use Kenny Golladay more. That's not really working out. It's a weird situation. Saquon Barkley is really hard-pressed coming back. He's, making some progress, but it's not as much as you'd hoped. And then Philadelphia, who they did manage to win a week 1 game. Otherwise, most of the time, it's just been trailing. A lot of trailing. I don't believe in Jalen Hurts, and I don't believe in their defense. I don't particularly like anything about this team. I just think they happen to be slightly better than these other 5. And then the next is the Steelers. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. The Steelers are officially one of the 10 worst teams in the NFL. Other than their pass rush, is there anything that they do particularly well? The Falcons, I did not think that the absence of Julio Jones would have affected their offense this much, but it seems like they really, really need that other wide receiver option. The Washington football team, their defense is not good, and that would have been the only redeeming quality about this team. On the bright side, it looks like Taylor Heinicke might be a potential franchise quarterback in the future. Between him and Terry McLaurin, there does seem to be some sort of offensive production, just it's not consistent. The Bears, I don't believe that the Bears are better off with Justin Fields, although they just named him the starter yesterday, I believe. I believe that right now, for the time being, Andy Dalton can win you more games, but otherwise, I mean, top 12 defense like they always have had since 2017, 2018. Decent skill position players. Another NFC North team right above them, Minnesota. Minnesota is a pretty complete team, just they don't have the full offensive line that you'd want them to have on offense. And then defensively, they've got holes kind of up and down. We're really hoping that Patrick Peterson kind of steps it up to maybe, shore up the secondary, but otherwise, the Vikings are pretty far below average. And then the Colts, who have been suffering from injuries all year. I really like the Colts to be a AFC South division winner. But in the absence of Quentin Nelson, in the absence of a fully fledged out offensive line and a healthy defense, it's not really going to happen. Next, I've got the Patriots and the Dolphins, two AFC East teams who I really wanted to believe in the Patriots this year, and I feel bad for the Dolphins because I feel like Tua's just really never gotten the chance that he deserves. But I mean, these stories are kind of self-explanatory. I mean, these are really good defenses with, scattered parts around. Like the Patriots have decent tight ends. The The Dolphins have decent wide receivers, and can't really scuff together the wins. The Saints and the Titans, I believe, are having somewhat of an identity crisis. I don't understand what the Saints are doing on offense. You'd think that Sean Payton would have just kind of like let Jameis go and said, all right, you've been learning under Drew Brees for the last 2 years. You've been learning in my system for the last 2 years. Have at it. And you think that Jameis Winston will be a guy that could throw for, 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, maybe 15 picks instead of 30 picks. But instead, he's going to end up throwing for like 2,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, and like 10 picks, which is just a really weird situation on how they're running the quarterback. And then the Titans, it's like Derrick Henry had one absolute monster game, which is the reason why he's leading the NFL in rushing yards. Otherwise, he hasn't really done much. And then you've got Julio Jones, you've got A.J. Brown, but it doesn't seem like they know what they're doing together on offense with those two. And then the defense is just, you want it to be mediocre at best. The Bengals and the Broncos, I'd say they're a piece away. Whereas, for the Bengals, I'd say that's an elite pass rusher. And for the Broncos, I'd say, health aside, I'd say that's a consistently good quarterback. I believe Teddy Bridgewater is a consistently average quarterback, and I believe that Drew Lock is an inconsistent up and down quarterback. Bengals need a pass rush because Bengals need a defense. And the Denver Broncos, health aside, because it seems like they're always getting injured, especially on the offense, especially wide receivers. They need a consistently good quarterback. And then we've got this next group of teams, the last four before the top 10. We've got the Seahawks, Browns, Raiders, and 49ers. All of these teams do something extremely well, but they all have something that's holding them back. So the Seahawks, their passing game is phenomenal. They've got, Russell Wilson, a top 5 or so quarterback in the league, and 2 really, really good wide receivers. But their defense and the running game is just not up to par. Parts of their defense have, talent. I love Jamal Adams, but other than him, there's not really much to redeem about it. The Browns have a great pass rush. They've got a great running game. They've been dominating the trenches with their offensive and defensive lines, but their secondary and their passing game so far has just been awful. Browns are quietly having a Baker Mayfield discussion, not whether or not they're going to keep him, because I think it's too late to decide to move on from him, but whether or not he's even worth $35 million, let alone, that 40 mark that he was looking for. The Raiders, their passing game inexplicably has been the number 1 passing game in the NFL. And their pass rush has actually been really good. But if you can get around their pass rush, their pass defense is no longer good in the slightest. And their running game is awful. And situationally, they've made some comebacks, but they've also started out the last 3 years very hot. And so I'd like to wait and see on the Raiders. And then the San Francisco 49ers, it's hard to see if they're still that defense from 2 years ago that carried that team to the Super Bowl. And they've gotten so many injuries on the offensive side, especially in the running back position, that it's really hard to tell what their offense is going to be. Unfortunately, Jimmy Garoppolo just went down, and I really would have liked to have seen Trey Lance sit and learn, but we'll see what he's able to do coming up this week. All right, sitting in at number 10, we've got the Carolina Panthers, who, as of yesterday, just made a trade for Stephon Gilmore. So that means they're going to have C.J. Henderson, they're going to have A.J. Boye, they're going to have Stephon Gilmore, and then if they're still around for the playoffs, they might get J.C. Horn back. Which, they already had a stout defense to begin with. They were the number 1 third down defense, and this is just going to make it stronger. Sam Darnold is finally the quarterback that I thought that he could have been. I think Sam Darnold is finally the quarterback that the Browns should have drafted several years ago. And hopefully Christian McCaffrey can stay hurt. I've been a fan of his since he played at Stanford and got robbed of the Heisman, in my opinion. But we'll see what the Panthers can do. The Los Angeles Chargers, they've got an elite pass rusher. They've got an elite safety. They've got very good cornerback. They've got a very, very excellent, great young quarterback and great wide receivers, a talented pass-catching running back. Very good offensive line play so far. The only thing that you're really wondering about the Chargers is that they have zero playoff experience on the entire roster. I think the only one that is on the roster that might have some playoff experience is Keenan Allen and maybe some of the older vets that I can't remember. The Cowboys, right now, what don't the Cowboys do well? I mean, they just got rid of Jalen Smith because Micah Parsons and Leighton Vander Esch are just taking up all the linebacker snaps. I'm surprised they didn't try to trade him. He is on a relatively large contract, but they've also got Trayvon Diggs in the secondary, who's been playing exceptionally well. They don't even have DeMarcus Lawrence right now. But the only thing right now that the Cowboys are doing that you wouldn't really necessarily say is ideal is they're maybe overpaying Ezekiel Elliott. Otherwise, they've got 3 great wide receivers, really good tight end. Dak is playing at a phenomenal level, and the defense is actually able to hold teams to lower points. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I put them one spot above the Cowboys just because I think they've pretty much been, just barely consistently better than the Cowboys, even going back to week 1 when they barely beat the Cowboys. They've got a slightly better offense, slightly less balanced. It's definitely more Brady dependent, but they also have significantly more weapons. Their defense, they've been a really, really great run defense, but they have a non-existent pass defense, like no secondary, and the pass rush isn't getting there fast enough for the non-existent secondary. I've got the Bills at 6. I think that they haven't really played anybody yet, and Josh Allen isn't playing his best football. I would like to see what he's going to look like this week against Kansas City. I do believe that the Bills can and probably should win in Kansas City this week. But we'll see. We'll see what they can do. They've got 3 really good wide receivers, a pretty decent tight end. Obviously, they've got the young quarterback. Their running game isn't as good as people think it is. And then their defense, despite 2 shutouts, I don't believe it's really a top 5 or top maybe 7 unit in the NFL, but can it be top 10, like 7, 8, 9, 10? Potentially. And then this is my top 5 right here. I've got the Chiefs at 5, only due out of respect to Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and all of the great players that they have. But they haven't been playing like it. They've lost to the Chargers and they've lost to the Ravens in consecutive weeks. Then they play Philadelphia in what would have looked like, a battle of division rivals that are, duking it out for, the wild card versus, the division winner. But it's the Philadelphia Eagles. That game shouldn't have been close at all. And Baltimore Ravens, I will excuse the close win to Detroit because they had just come off Lamar Jackson's first win against Patrick Mahomes. I think that was like his first win out of like 4 or 5 games against Patrick Mahomes. So I understand why the team would be euphorious, might not necessarily look to Detroit as a real opponent because Detroit's trash. And so that weak performance doesn't really mean much, especially because they won it and then they moved on the next week to win again. I've got the Rams at 3. I would have had the Rams at 1, even if they would have lost close in a good game to Arizona if something fluky had happened. But you can't get blown out at home. There's just no excuses. The Arizona pass rush just dominated the Rams' offensive line all day. The Rams' passing game could not get going, and their defense had no answer for Kyler Murray. I've got the Packers at 2, who I would have had at 2 regardless. I believe that the Packers are pretty much a complete team top to bottom. However, they are probably going to lose Jair Alexander and Zadarius Smith for a significant amount of time. If that is not a huge hindrance to their defense, then they can stay in this top 5, but they might accidentally slip down, due to their health concerns. And then the Arizona Cardinals. Right now, Kyler Murray is the MVP. The addition of J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones has given so many players on the defense pass rush opportunities, and they're looking great as of right now. They've got 3 very good wide receivers. They've got 2 decent running backs, and in their defensive, Backfield, you got Budda Baker and Isaiah Simmons, who's kind of playing like a safety. And it's looking really well so far. So there's my power rankings right now. Be sure to look out for more videos this week, including the lines of the week and the 5-minute fantasies.